My name is Ethan Cross, and until 6 weeks ago, I was nobody. Just another analyst for the National Security Agency, buried deep within a sub-department so classified its name was a lie, the Department of Anomalous Phenomena. Our real job wasn't to study anomalies, it was to make them disappear. We were the government's digital janitors, scrubbing servers, altering reports, and creating plausible explanations for things that had none. UFO sightings, strange transmissions, impossible radar signatures. My job was to find the most boring explanation possible and make it stick. For years, I believed I was protecting national security from mass panic. I was wrong. I was protecting a secret. It all started with a ghost file. A corrupted data fragment from 1957, flagged for final deletion. The system couldn't erase it. Every time I tried, it would reappear. The file was tiny, just a few lines of code and a single reference. Biologic Signature 0. Dugway Proving Ground. There was also a string of numbers that looked like coordinates. It should have been nothing, a glitch. But my job taught me one thing. The system never glitches. Not like this. That night, I broke my first rule. I copied the ghost file to a private drive. I didn't know it yet, but I had just downloaded the most dangerous secret in human history.
Dugway Proving Ground, Utah. A place where the military tests its most secret and deadly toys. According to the public record, it's all about chemical and biological weapons. But using the coordinates from the file, I accessed the deep archives. I found what I was looking for, buried under layers of redaction. In 1957, it wasn't a weather balloon or a failed missile test. It was an unidentified object that fell from the sky. The official report called it a meteorite, but this meteorite didn't create a crater. The declassified photos showed a smooth, ovoid object, dark and metallic, half buried in the desert sand. The most disturbing part was in the geological survey logs. The first team on site reported significant structural damage to the object. The team that arrived 12 hours later reported the object was perfectly intact. It had repaired itself. And then I found the medical file. Private First Class Miller, one of the soldiers who secured the site, he had touched the object with his bare hands. He was quarantined, studied. The reports were heavily censored, but one line, missed by the censors, stood out. Subject cellular decay has ceased. Rate of necrosis is 0. Recommend transfer to permanent observation. Cellular decay had ceased. He wasn't healing, he just stopped breaking down. The trail from Private Miller led me to Project Chimera, a name that existed only in the darkest corners of the agency's server, a program that officially never happened. It ran from 1961 to 1978. Its purpose was chillingly clear: to replicate the effect of the Dugway anomaly, to stop cellular decay. This was not clean, sterile science. The files were a gallery of horrors. Animal testing, then human subjects, terminal patients, death row inmates, individuals who had no one to report them missing. The early experiments were catastrophic failures. Instead of halting decay, they accelerated it, causing horrific, uncontrolled mutations. The photos were the stuff of nightmares. Flesh and bone twisted into unnatural forms. They were trying to force a biological process they didn't understand. They had the engine of a starship, but they were trying to start it by lighting a match. But among the failures, there were hints of success. A few subjects showed stability. Their aging process slowed dramatically, but the cost was immense. The reports mentioned severe psychological degradation, psychosis, extreme aggression. They had managed to preserve the body, but they had shattered the mind. Project Chimera was eventually shut down, deemed a failure. But I knew that wasn't the end. They didn't stop. They just got better at hiding it.
I hit a dead end. The paper trail for Chimera went cold. I realized I was thinking like a historian, looking at reports and photos. I needed to think like a data analyst. The key wasn't in what they wrote about the object. It was in the object itself, or what was left of it. I searched for the original signal logs from 1957. The raw data from the instruments pointed at the anomaly. It took me 3 days of nonstop work, but I found it. A petabyte of data, classified as background radiation and archived. To everyone else, it was just noise. But I saw it. A pattern. A complex repeating waveform hidden beneath layers of cosmic static. It wasn't a message, not in any language we would understand. It was more like a symphony. A set of instructions woven into the very fabric of a carrier wave. I wrote a decryption algorithm, letting my computer run for 36 hours straight. When it was done, what appeared on my screen made my breath catch in my throat. It wasn't English. It wasn't Russian or Chinese. It was the language of life itself. A sequence of commands that targeted and corrected errors in DNA replication. It was a biological source code, a set of instructions for life without death. You don't pull a file that's been dormant for 60 years without tripping a wire. I didn't know it at the time, but my decryption of the source code had lit me up like a Christmas tree on their internal security network. The change was subtle at first. My network access would randomly slow down, my terminal would require extra layers of authentication for routine searches. Then came the people. A colleague from another department, a man I'd never spoken to, started making small talk by the coffee machine, asking unusually specific questions about my work. His name was Silas. He had empty, patient eyes, the kind of eyes that don't just look at you, but through you. He was a watcher. Internal security. The men who cleaned up messes like me. The walls were closing in. Every keystroke I made was being logged. Every conversation was a potential interrogation. The paranoia was no longer a feeling. It was a survival instinct. I was no longer just an analyst. I was a target. And I knew I was running out of time. Not just to save myself, but to figure out what they were really doing with the source code. They hid it well. There were no official records, no budget lines, no server directories named Project Eternity. I had to find it sideways. I searched for financial black holes, massive expenditures attributed to shell corporations or defunct military programs. It led me to a single, heavily encrypted server located physically at a black site in Nevada, the modern iteration of Area 51. I used the raw decryption key from the alien source code as a password, a desperate 1 in a billion shot. The system paused. For a full 10 seconds, my screen was frozen. I thought Silas's men were about to burst through the door. Then, access granted. I was in. The files inside made Project Chimera look like child's play. They had perfected it. Using the source code, they had created a retrovirus that could seamlessly integrate with human DNA, halting the aging process at the cellular level. It was clean, it was stable, it was successful, and it was being used. I found the patient list. It wasn't a list of test subjects. It was a roster of the global elite. Billionaire industrialists, powerful politicians, 4-star generals, media moguls, a secret international cabal. They weren't just hiding alien technology. They were using it to make themselves gods, leaving the rest of humanity to grow old and die. I had to know what happened to the first man, Private Miller. I searched his name in the Eternity database, and there he was, Subject 0. His file was active. According to the data, he was still alive, more than 90 years old, held in a state of suspended animation in a subterranean medical bay beneath the Nevada facility. I accessed the live camera feed to his chamber. The image flickered to life. A man who looked no older than 30 lay on a sterile white bed, breathing slowly, rhythmically. His body was perfect, unaged, unscarred. He was the living proof, the miracle. But then I opened his psychological evaluations, decades of them. The early reports showed a healthy, stable soldier. Then slowly, things began to unravel. Memory fragmentation, emotional detachment. He started referring to his own past in the third person, as if it happened to someone else. He couldn't form new long-term memories. The last report before they put him into stasis was written by the project's lead psychologist. It read, "The vessel remains pristine, but the passenger is gone. The cellular structure is immortal, but the consciousness, the soul, it seems to have an expiration date. It erodes, thinned by the sheer, crushing weight of time."
Why hide it? Why keep this gift for themselves? I found my answer in a series of manifestos, philosophical justifications written by the project's original founders in the 1980s. They weren't megalomaniacs. They were terrified. They had run simulations. What would happen if immortality were given to everyone? The results were apocalyptic. Overpopulation within 3 generations. Global wars fought for resources, for space, for the simple right to exist. Religions would collapse. Societies would stagnate, terrified of change, ruled by the old and fearful. Humanity, they argued, was not ready. Giving immortality to our species would be like giving a child a loaded gun. Their solution was a dark form of paternalism. A secret council of the most stable minds, the global elite, would take the gift for themselves. They would guide humanity from the shadows, an invisible, immortal hand on the tiller of history, ensuring our survival by denying us our ultimate prize. They saw themselves not as tyrants, but as shepherds, and they had decided that for the flock to survive, it must remain mortal. Reading their calm, rational, and utterly horrifying logic, a seed of doubt entered my mind. Was I about to become a savior, or the man who doomed us all? The system alerted me that my credentials had been flagged and were being traced. The timer appeared on my screen, remote system purge in 5 minutes. Silas was done watching. He was coming to clean the slate. My heart hammered in my chest. This was it, the point of no return. I had one goal: get the data out. I initiated a transfer of the core files, the alien source code, the Eternity subject list, the logs on Subject 0 and the Founders' Manifestos to a single, heavily encrypted data drive. It was everything. The entire conspiracy, the entire miracle, the entire curse. The progress bar crawled across the screen. 1 minute left. I heard footsteps in the corridor, heavy, purposeful. 30 seconds. The transfer completed. I ripped the drive from the port just as my monitor went black, displaying the words, "Access denied." I didn't take the elevator. I ran for the emergency stairwell, the small data drive clutched in my hand. It felt impossibly heavy, weighted with the future of an entire species. The alarm bells started to shriek throughout the facility. It didn't matter. I was already out the door, melting into the anonymous Washington, D.C. night, a ghost running from ghosts. I'm sitting in a cheap motel room 100 miles from D.C. The sirens have faded. For now, the data drive is on the table next to my laptop. It's all here. The power to change the world. The power to destroy it. I open a secure browser.
On the screen is the login page for the world's most prominent investigative journalists. One click, and the truth is out. Project Eternity will be exposed. The secret gods who rule us from the shadows will be revealed. But then what? What happens when the world learns that immortality is real, but only for the rich and powerful? What happens when they learn the price of that immortality is the slow erosion of the soul? Will it lead to revolution? Or will it lead to a new, desperate kind of war, a war for eternal life? The founders believed they were protecting us. Am I so sure they were wrong? Two choices: expose the truth and hand humanity a beautiful but poisoned chalice, or destroy this drive, walk away, and leave mankind in the comfort of ignorance, forever ruled by the shepherds who conquered death. My finger hovers over the keyboard. The cursor blinks, waiting. The fate of humanity, our inheritance, waiting for a single keystroke.